starts off with nice. What do you say?
لبيك إن العيش لبيك إن العيش. He says, "Oh Allah, labbaik." إن العيش عيش الآخرة. لبيك إن العيش عيش الآخرة. Class? Alhamdulillah. Anything else? طيب. See what we have online. First thing, see if we got something from Instagram. Nocturnal boat. Barakallahu fikum. Amir Suleiman from Washington, D.C. How can we increase our willpower from winning and temptations? Winning or type. At the end of the day, we've spoken on jihad on nafs, several different lectures. There are many tools and keys to successful jihad on nafs. And I myself have not practically mastered all of those tools and keys. I've learned many of them theoretically, but practically implementing them is a different story. And since you mentioned Sun Tzu, Mahmoud Ji, he said what? One may know how to conquer without being able to do it himself. That's a fact. So jihad on nafs in theory, we've spoken on this many, many times. The tools and the keys to successfully training and building and fortifying one's will and fighting temptations. The practice of those keys, different story. As far as the theory, then it's control of one's thoughts. You got to control your mind. Can't allow your mind to sway and to wander. Can't think too much or think too little. You can't let your mind just chill and relax. As one once said, a wise one once said, the cost or the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The cost that you pay to be free is that what? Keep your eyes and ears open at all times. There is no chill, relax, let your guard down at all times, 24/7. That's the price of freedom. And if you're not free, that means you're in captivity, you're in slavery. Your nafs, your desires will lock you up. You become a victim of your lusts, of your temptations, laziness, whatever it may be. Unless you're constantly on point. Be aware. So that's one of my first keys, or first points, is to control your thoughts. And do not allow your thoughts to control you. And always be thinking, looking out for the enemy, right? Ambush happens when you least expect it. When you least expect it, that's when what? That's when the ambush takes place. Talk about, for example, an issue or a real life example from history. We talk about the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. The conflict in Vietnam before it was an actual war with regards to the Western powers, more specifically America. France, they were fighting there for a very long time. But the Americans, Australians, the British, talking about our country, Americans. The first Americans to get there, when the conflict was heating up and it was turning into a full-scale war, the early GIs that went to Vietnam, they weren't accustomed to anything that they encountered. There was no conventional, traditional type of warfare. They didn't, stand in front of them and announce their presence and shoot. It wasn't like that. Their big weapons, big guns, big planes, they couldn't use them. And oftentimes, at nighttime, or when using the bathroom, or smoking a cigarette, or listening to music, or smoking marijuana, or going to a whorehouse, doing heroin, whatever the case may be, that's when those guerrillas, they were called, those people fighting for the unification and freedom of their country, That's when they would strike. And those GIs were losing their lives, being wounded and maimed at the time in which they least expected. I just went to go use the bathroom, booby trap. We're not in the bush fighting. We're in the city, going to drink beer and hang out with some girls. Killed, etc., etc., etc. So there were many victims of those original U.S. soldiers. The second, third, fourth wave to do their tours and their campaigns in Vietnam, from the first things that they were taught by the old GIs was to be aware 24/7. And the moment you're out there walking around, you keep your eyes peeled and your ears listening, because they're going to get you when you don't think that they're going to get you, because they're outnumbered and they're outgunned. They don't have millions and millions of dollars funding them like we do. So hard lessons were learned. That's the point I'm trying to get to. The people, the soldiers that weren't vigilant, they weren't aware, no one was allowed to use the bathroom by themselves. You had to go with someone, and someone had to watch you use the bathroom. You weren't allowed to have this vacation time. You weren't allowed to go here. They had to learn those lessons the what? Easy way or the what? The hard way. The guy missing a leg, the guy with no arm, the guy would have his face blown off, was the one who told them, keep your eyes peeled. Do not go to sleep. Do not chill. Do not relax. The moment you relax, enemy is going to get you. So I'm making a comparison here with regards to temptations. You have an addiction, something that you want to do, something that you're used to doing. You're fighting those temptations. You're fighting an urge. You're doing good. You've been sober. You haven't been drinking for days. A Saturday comes, alhamdulillah, I'm good, let me just relax. Let me go to the supermarket. Let me go watch this game. Let me go visit this family member. Let me go here with my kids. Let me do this. I'm not, on guard. And the next thing you know, temptation, thought, something triggers it, and what? Back to the bottle. So the cost of recovering from alcoholism is that you have to be on guard 24/7. And anyone who is an addict, and anyone who is addicted to any substance, they'll tell you that. Is that the program doesn't stop when you're sober. The program doesn't stop when you have no, you have to now teach people. You have to keep talking about it. You have to be vigilant. What? 24/7. And your thoughts, thinking about it, reminiscing, oh man, and this and that, has to be on point. And the moment you're not in control of your thoughts, that's when the powerful addiction will come back and enslave you again. So this is one of the main keys to successful jihadun nafs, is to control your thoughts. Don't think about it. If you think about it, stop thinking about it. If you slip up, think about the consequence, etc., etc., etc. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Moving forward. Questions coming from BMA from San Diego. Is having bad memory a sign of too much sin? Perhaps. Sometimes, yes. AD from Laval, Canada. Assalamu alaikum. Is the hadith on beating the child if he doesn't pray sahih? How should we hit the child in that case? Those hadiths are well known with regards to disciplining children and commanding them to pray, etc. How should you beat the child? First and foremost, the child should be taught to pray before beaten. Verbal tarbiyah before verbal discipline. Teach them about the importance of the prayer, the virtue of the prayer. Give them rewards for praying on time. And unfortunately, to be brutally honest, you may teach your children about the prayer their whole lives. You may pray in front of them, and they still may grow up and be lazy and lethargic and don't want to pray. 13 years old, 15 years old, you have to holler at them to pray. Force them to pray. Remind them to pray. It's time to pray. Oh, I didn't know it was Dhuhr time. I didn't know it was Asr time. I didn't know it was Maghrib time. How are you so lost? Why don't you know that it's dark outside? It's no longer. Well, what's going on? They don't have an app for that? You're on the phone all day, all night. You don't know that it's time to pray? Is prayer that heavy? Is that burdensome? Does it hurt you so much just to get up and pray? 5 minutes. Put down a video game. Not 10 hours, pray tahajjud, just 5 minutes. Make wudu and pray. Is it that hard? So that's very unfortunate reality of many of our children. We have to force them to pray. Comes to the dunya, phones, sneakers, tablets, cartoons, they know everything. Prayer, Allah hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And Ibn Qayyim talks about the ones whose hearts are void of Allah's love are the ones who find it the hardest to pray. The people whose hearts are the furthest from Allah, they're the ones who find no sweetness in the prayer whatsoever. The prayer is a burden to them instead of a joy and an honor and a pleasure. I'm happy to pray. So how did that happen? How did that take place in our households? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What's important is teach the children about the importance of prayer, the virtue of prayer, the reward of prayer. Reward them, give them things, and make dua for Allah to keep them firm. Make dua for Allah to allow them to love the prayer. If that doesn't work, then you have to discipline them, punish them. You have to teach them and train them and enforce the rules. And if that doesn't work, then those hadiths teach us to وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ أَبْنَاءُ عَشْرٍ. Beat them, hit them, and they're 10 years old. Of course, the child should not be beaten or hit in the face. The child should not be beaten and hit in which they have marks and bruises and whelps and scars. And you should physically discipline them to teach them, you got to pray. And I don't know what happened to you, son. I don't know what happened to you, daughter. I pray, your mother prays, or your stepmother prays. My ex-wife, your mom, when you live with her, she makes the salah, inshallah. I don't know where you learned not to pray. Well, I don't. I don't know where you learned that. But if you're in my house, you are going to pray. And if you don't pray, and if you don't like to pray, that's between you and Allah. I can't force you. You're too big. You're bigger than me now. You're a grown woman, a grown son. But there are rules. And from those rules is that you have to pray. And if you are too busy or too forgetful or whatever the case may be, then there will be punishments. And that's the duty and that's the job of the parent. And that's what's meant by that hadith. And Allah surely knows best. May Allah guide us all as parents. And may Allah guide all of our children. Ameen. SH from Toronto, Canada. Do you have to return the salam of your oppressor? I tend to distance myself to protect myself and ignore their harsh words. So I wonder, do I have to response? What's your relationship with this oppressor? Why are you in constant contact with them? And what type of oppression did they do to you? An open public sin in which they have become a fasiq, or something more detailed than that? It depends. Wallahu alam. Abu Nasim from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Is investing, trading in stock, crypto market okay? Some things are all right, and some things are clearly not all right, and some things are gray. So you have to bring specific detail of what you're trying to invest in and what's the nature of that investment. But in general, some things are permissible to invest in, certain things in stock, certain things of cryptocurrency. It's all right. It's not haram. It's like trading or investing in other things. But there are other things which are unknown, things which are clearly dealing with haram products, riba, etc., etc. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Allah yahfadhukum. Ya Aba Hamza, barakallahu feek. See if we have anything from on YouTube. And if it's time for the adhan, we can make the adhan now. If it's time. MD, coming from Jaipur, India. Salam. Is university or having classes a legitimate reason to skip more than 3 Friday prayers? Jazakallah khairan. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace to our disciples in the lands of India. No. Make it your priority to make Jumu'ah. Even if you can't do it every week for whatever reason, break that 3. Do not allow 3 weeks to come and go without praying Jumu'ah. COVID, school, whatever it is, unless it's an extreme situation, you can't get to the masjid, you can't pray where you are, that's a different story. Wallahu alam. Next question is coming from Rockville, Maryland. Initials RN. Should I wear a hijab in front of a Down syndrome man when working as a take carer in their family's house? I believe he's above 30, but he has Down syndrome. Safest thing to do is to wear hijab in front of him if he's above and beyond the age of puberty. AA from Bronx, New York. Is touching a woman a major sin? It depends on how you touch her. All right? And Allah knows best. KS from London, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I'm trying to acquire Arabic. I've started immersing myself in children's cartoons and TV shows on Netflix and YouTube and basic books to help me learn. Is that a good method? First and foremost is, go ahead. Inshallah, we'll stop for the adhan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
طيب. Question was, okay, cartoons and the Netflix, etc., etc. Is that a good method? Jaffa, can you tell? We need a battery. This computer's gonna die. Your live stream is gonna go out. Sheikh Naeem, is he asleep? Tell him, yeah, you gotta grab a charger. What's important is, if that's benefiting you and it's helping you out, you're learning practically, alhamdulillah. Try your best to avoid anything which is haram or disliked or doubtful. And if that's what's making you learn Arabic and it's working for you, Bismillah. Next question is coming from Toronto, Canada. Is it permissible to text your fiance? It's not necessarily haram to have communication with a woman that you're not married with, especially if you have intentions on marrying the woman. Khayr, inshallah. Quran clearly states that Allah knows the troublemaker from the peacemaker. And these are based off of intentions. Allah knows best. Be mindful. Next question is coming from New Britain, Connecticut. Initials RW. What is your advice for women seeking higher knowledge? What I previously mentioned in the lecture. Shatter the stereotypes. Break the stereotypes. Make that your drive. Your drive that pushes you. Of course, your intentions are for Allah. But allow that to be your worldly drive to excel. Because there are a lot of men who don't like women learning. And who try to justify and legitimize women not learning. I'm talking about Islamic knowledge. As far as the secular knowledge, the worldly knowledge, I'm not discussing that. I'm talking about deen knowledge, knowledge of the deen. And Allah knows best. Fadl ya akhi.
My question is there an Islamic ruling on the COVID-19 vaccination?
Is there an Islamic ruling on the COVID-19 vaccination? And if there is, can you enlighten us on it? For sure, there are many rulings on vaccinations, COVID and other than COVID. But it's not that simple. It's not black and white like many people try to make it seem. So, let's say, for example, we have the elephant and the, what's the other sign, the donkey or a mule? The Republicans and the Democrats, right? It's a mule or a donkey? It's a donkey, right? Right? So the Republicans and the Democrats, the blue and the red. Those who say that Islam not only allows the COVID-19 vaccination, not only recommends it, but enforces it. The Quran or the Holy Quran says, don't kill yourselves, protect yourselves, take your precaution. The Holy Quran clearly says, obey the rulers, listen to the rulers. The Holy Quran clearly mandates, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. Verse after verse after verse. And these are verses in the Holy Quran, no doubt. So they say this proves that you have to get the COVID shot You should get the COVID shot. You must get the shot to protect yourselves, not to kill yourselves. And preservation of life is one of the most important aims and objectives of the Sharia. Preservation of life is one of the most important goals and tasks of the Islamic legal system, to preserve life. And taking the vaccination preserves your life, and it preserves the lives of those who are around you, etc., etc., etc. That's what the Republicans say. And then the Democrats say, they come along and they say the whole exact opposite. It's not only is taking the vaccine not obligatory, not recommended, not just like it's haram. You cannot take the vaccine. And that's because the Holy Quran clearly states, do not eat from that which Allah's name has not been mentioned upon. The Holy Quran clearly says, do not kill yourselves. They use the same verses. The Holy Quran clearly says, take your precaution. And the Holy Quran and the Sharia, its aim is to preserve life. And taking that vaccination is a means of destroying your life, ruining your life. You're going to die in 3 years, etc. And the Holy Quran also talks about evil leaders, evil rulers, wicked scholars, people lying to the people, people deceiving the people, hiding knowledge from the people. All of that, no doubt, is in the Quran. That's a fact. So therefore, the COVID vaccine cannot be taken. It contains impurities, filthy things, fetus, this, that, etc., 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 etc. So there are two sides now. Both sides are sticking to their guns. You have to take the vaccine. You can't take the vaccine. So therefore, it depends on how you look at it. If you honestly, sincerely feel in your heart that it's going to be a means of you being protected by Allah's permission from getting infected or spreading the infection or harming others, etc., and it's bismillah, you take it. If you don't feel that way, if you're not sincerely convinced, don't take it. Or if you feel that it may be helpful, but I don't think it's that helpful the way that they're pushing it and propagating it. I don't believe in what they're saying. I don't differ. I'm not fighting on the reality that people have died. Nor am I fighting on the reality that there is a thing called infection and that there are illnesses and people do die. I'm not arguing on that. But I have a problem with trusting this person or these people because they've been proven to lie. And they've been proven to use human nations as guinea pigs. And it's not a conspiracy theory. There's no 5%er Hebrew Israelite stuff. This is factual information in which they use nations, not men, not nations, as guinea pigs to test out unsure, uncertain, risky drugs. That's a fact. So I think that when talking about the vaccine from an Islamic standpoint and a fiqh standpoint, you have to be honest and transparent. No one is differing on the reality that Allah causes death and sickness and illness. And that the Prophet ﷺ told us to take our precaution. The Quran, no one is saying that a mask or this or that. We're not different on that. But do you honestly trust this person who's encouraging you, pushing it, throwing it down your throat to take this vaccination? Do you feel that the vaccination is that transparent? Can you still get it? Can you still pass it on to others? You won't get the symptoms, etc., 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 etc. So these are based off of intentions. And how much sincerity you have will determine whether you should or shouldn't take the vaccine. A person says, I feel confident in what the medical specialist said. I feel confident in what the politicians are trying to protect the lives of their subjects. I trust them as a Muslim. But if you don't feel that way, don't allow no one to force you into feeling that way. Another very important aspect is it permissible to use najasa for a cure? Is it permissible to use something haram as a cure? Is there not a hadith that states that Allah has not made your cure and now which He has made unlawful upon you? Is there not a hadith in which the companions were asked, O Messenger of Allah, should we use wine and liquor to cure ourselves? And the Prophet ﷺ is quote to have said, it is not a cure, but it is an illness itself, etc., etc. So can a person use ad-dawa al-khabith? Fuqaha, they differ on this issue. Can you use things, parts of animals, let alone dead babies, and fecal matter, and so on? So that's a long discussion, a technical discussion. All right? If taking the COVID vaccine, if it's a necessity, if it's durura, then perhaps it's permissible to use something haram for cure if it's a durura. But the argument still remains, is the vaccine a durura or not? And that's where the people are fighting. And some people say that it is not proven to be a necessity and an absolute must. And others saying that it is a means, it has reduced and bent the curve or lowered the curve, flattened the curve, etc., etc. Now, you take one shot, you take a second shot, you take a booster shot. Now there's the Delta variant. It's killing millions of Americans, etc., people around the world, etc. What happens if another variant comes out? And the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth variant? How many vaccinations will you take? How fast was the vaccination made? How quickly did they? There are many questions that I think and feel remain unanswered. Remain unanswered, medically, scientifically. And I think, me personally, and Allah knows best, I feel that it's problematic when a person gets upset or mad for being asked certain questions and feeling the need to silence and to shut somebody up who's asking certain questions. And even from an Islamic, from a worldly standpoint, not even Islam, our country, the Constitution, the concept of people speaking up, people having their rights, people having freedom, people not just submitting and listening to what their overlords say. That is the basic fabric of America. That's the basic fabric of the patriots fighting the red coats. No taxation without. It just is, that's the bottom line. So I think that there are many things that are unanswered, many things that aren't clear, many things that are doubtful, let alone other things. So it goes back to how you feel. And I honestly feel that Islamically there's room for this view or that view. That's what I feel is being fair. And Allah surely knows best. Fadl ya akhi.
In regards to the vaccination being mandated upon you in order to study at a university, what would you advise the student to do in that regard?
Being mandated to take the shot, you can't come in person if you don't, etc., etc., losing your jobs. I think the president mentioned that he's coming out with like stricter rules and mandates, etc. Well, the best answer I give you is the answer I got from a good old friend of mine from Medina. He's living in Minnesota right now. He told me that he got the vaccine, he's traveling, etc. He said, Mufti, he said, you can play around as long as you want, you can act tough, you can do this, you can say this. But eventually, Mufti, you're going to take the vaccine. Eventually, you're going to be forced in a corner, you can't travel, you can't do this, you can't go here. So he said to me, he says, you might as well take it down. Do I agree with that? Is that, you get the point I'm trying to make, is that Allah knows best. It seems as if people who refuse to take the vaccine will be eventually what? Cornered and cornered and cornered and cornered. In which they'll say to you, we're not making it obligatory. We're not saying that you have to, your constitutional rights, but you can't eat here, you can't do this here, you can't work here, you can't travel, you can't make Hajj and Umrah. So, yani, running and hiding, right? And last thing I'll say, since we're quoting in Sun Tzu tonight, that a larger force that stubbornly and obstinately fights a larger force, even if it has some temporary freedom and success, in the end it will be captured by the larger force. So it's an unfortunate situation that we're in. Help us sought with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't allow anyone or anything or any scholar or politician to force you to do something that you don't feel comfortable with in your heart. That's the point. And as long as you keep that sincerity and that honesty with Allah, Allah will make a way out for you, one way or another. That's the best advice I can give to you with regards to this vaccine, this pandemic, and anything else. And Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. We've said too much here tonight. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala abdi wa rasulih nabiyina Muhammad.